Everybody knows who Janice Dean is. She's always got a smile on her face. She's a meteorologist at the Fox News Channel. The only time she doesn't have a smile is when she's talking seriously about what took place in New York starting 3 years ago. She's the author of I Am the Storm, Inspiring Stories of People Who Fight Against Overwhelming Odds. Mr. Producer, let's put that on all our social sites. I have never talked to Janice Dean. Janice Dean, how are you?
I feel like I know you, though, Mark. I feel like we have talked to each other before. And I have to tell you, I'm so grateful for you and your voice, because I think I learned about the COVID positive patients being put into nursing homes from you, from your show, because you were reporting on this when no one else was. So I'm grateful for you and your audience, for raising the awareness when no one else was.
Well, you're very, very kind. I hate to take you through this again, but I want people to remember what happened to your family and so many other families, because people move on, and you really hold Andrew Cuomo so thoroughly responsible for the behavior of his government. You go right ahead.
Well, it's 3 years this week that we lost my husband's father in a nursing home. He died of COVID. We saw that on the death certificate. We didn't know what he had died from, and we were locked away. We couldn't see him. We weren't getting regular updates. As far as we knew, he was fine. We had no idea that our government was putting COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. They didn't tell the families. And my mother-in-law was in a separate elder care facility, an assisted living residence, where Mickey, her husband, was going to join her when he was well enough. And so my husband had to deliver the news to his mother that his father had passed away. And, they hadn't been apart in almost 60 years. So devastating, obviously. But we did not know that they were flooding nursing homes and assisted living residences with COVID. And, of course, through your reporting, we found out that over 9,000 sick patients were put into elder care facilities in New York State. And then Cuomo and his administration did everything they could to cover up the numbers. And it's 3 years later, Mark, and we have no answers. We have no accountability. And I have been told by lawmakers that there are going to be hearings, that they're going to subpoena Andrew Cuomo in Washington, D.C., and I have heard crickets. I've heard nothing.
You really have to wonder how a governor who has conducted himself this way can get away with it. We had a lady call us, and she called in last hour. We call her Dr. Elaine. She's a doctor. She was an administrator at one of these nursing homes, and she called into the show when this memo came out. And she really broke the story, and she read it to me. I said, no, you have to send it to me because I don't believe you.
Yes.
And I read it on the air. I said, what in the hell? I mean, what kind of a moron, his government would send COVID-positive patients into nursing homes and assisted living homes, and you're not even allowed to test people when they're coming in from the hospitals, and you're not allowed to reject anybody. I mean, that is like a death sentence, is it not?
Yes. Yes, it is. And there's a reason we're not finding out those answers. People are afraid, and it's not just Andrew Cuomo. I believe it's the Hospital Association. I believe there are a lot of people that have blood on their hands, and no one wants to get into the floorboards and find out exactly what happened. But we need to, because if there's one thing that we know from the very beginning, Mark, and that is that the elderly were the most susceptible to the virus. What if it was kids? What if kids were the most susceptible to the virus and they decided to flood schools? People will be in jail right now. But for some reason, they just want to shove it under the rug and not look at it. And people look at me like I'm crazy 3 years later that I'm still trying to shine a light on this. Because if I don't, who's going to?
And you're the kind of person who will cause this one day to be exposed. Tell us a little bit about your in-laws.
Oh, New York tough. That's what the governor used to call himself. I'm New York tough. They were born and bred in New York, lived in a 4-story walk-up in Brooklyn for almost 60 years. My father-in-law was a firefighter. My husband's a firefighter. For 23 years in the department. He was in the Air Force for many years as well. And they were true New Yorkers. And Dee was someone who never forgot a birthday or an anniversary. My husband used to call her every day on his way home. And there are still moments where he feels like he has to call her. And now we're coming up on the 3rd anniversary of their deaths. And what I've learned with advocacy is it's not a year, it's not 10 years, it's a lifetime. And I'm never going to be quiet. And for all of those that are helping to bring back this disgraced governor, you're going to hear from me because he doesn't deserve it. He has never apologized. He's never had answered tough questions, and he thinks he can just waltz right back into the political spotlight. Not on my watch.
He seems to be making that effort all over the place right now. Like he's trying to do a comeback. Well, what does he want? Him. Yeah, I agree with you. And what does he want? He wants to run again?
I just think he is somebody that really doesn't think he's ever done anything wrong in his entire life. And he deserves to be back in the spotlight, even though, they asked him, I'm positive they said, listen, you have to resign because if you don't, you're going to be impeached and there are going to be all sorts of little dirty secrets that you don't want out there. So he agreed to go away for a little bit, but now he's got a podcast and people are allowing him to come on their program for an hour like a campaign speech and not asking the tough questions. Over 15,000 elderly senior people died. And part of the reason they died is because he signed a death warrant. And we can't forget that. And if we don't find out why, Mark, it will happen again. So it's up to us to get those answers. But I don't have any elected officials that are helping me. I mean, it's up to the families. I think it's going to come down to lawsuits. It's going to have to.
Janice, now you've written a book. I know it's been out a bit, and that's not why I had you on, but I want people to get it. I Am the Storm, Inspiring Stories of People Who Fight Against Overwhelming Odds. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it started out with my family story and going up against incredible odds, a dynasty politician. In the beginning, people were telling me, watch your back. There's no way this guy is going anywhere. He's a
Well, they did try to smear you, remember? They did try to do that.
Yeah. Of course, him and his brother were trying to find a way to silence me by using my profession. Oh, she's just the weather girl. So Chris Cuomo called me the weather bitch. What can we do?
Hold on. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, the break's coming. I want to keep you on if you have time. Do you have a minute?
Of course, yes. Of course.
All right. It's the great Janice Dean, ladies and gentlemen. She's fantastic. Author of I Am the Storm, Inspiring Stories of People Who Fight Against Overwhelming Odds. We'll have it linked on all of our sites. We're here with Janice Dean, a colleague, though I've never met her, the Fox News Channel. It's mostly my fault, because I'm never in New York, so how would she meet me? I Am the Storm, Inspiring Stories of People Who Fight Against Overwhelming Odds. Now, Janice, you were talking about the book, and you were talking about it in the context of, and I raised it, the Cuomo brothers, but at least Andrew Cuomo and his surrogates trying to smear you, right?
Yeah. I mean, their way of doing that was kind of attacking my profession, but I always thought of it as they've got nothing else, so they have to come after me as being the weather girl. And I foiled for those emails. I want to see those emails from Chris Cuomo to Melissa DeRosa and the administration of him saying, well, how do we paint this woman as a right-wing Looney Tunes? Because that's what they were going to come after me for. And I'm not a political person, Mark. I say this all the time. The red and blue that I see on a map are areas of high pressure and low pressure. This is not about politics. I don't care if he's a Democrat. He hurt people. He helped kill people. So it shouldn't be about politics. And we should also mention that it wasn't just him. There were several other governors that had the same language in their executive order to put COVID positive patients into nursing homes. And I think if we find out why he did it, we'll find out why the others did it as well.
I guess they all communicated with each other. It's so bizarre. You know, you and I and so forth, we look at this memo, we look at what they did, you have to scratch your head. I mean, in Florida, you know, once the governor in Florida figured out what was going on, he took a completely opposite position from the guy in New York and from Fauci, right? I mean, so the information was there.
Right.
Anyway,
and it wasn't based on science.
Well, anyway,
no, it wasn't.
Janice, I want to thank you, and I want you to come back so we can keep working on this. Not we, you, and I will just kind of be by your side to some extent if I can help you.
Well, that means more to me than you know, because not many people have said that and meant it, and I know that you mean it.
Yes, you let us know, and you'll be on in a split second. Trust me on this. All right, Janice, God bless. And by the way, may I ask something? How's the weather in South Florida going to be in the next day? It's going to be great, isn't it?
It's always great in South Florida.
It is, I know.
And listen, you don't have to come to New York. I will gladly accept an invitation to come see you in Florida.
There you go. All right, my friend. Well, God bless to you and your entire family. Take care of yourself. You too, my friend. Thank you. Isn't she great? She is great. Shame on me for not having her on earlier, Mr. Producer.